The Justice Dems have terrible foreign policy. Yeah, I remember this. AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene joined forces to back doomed Gate Syria troop bill. Yeah, man, guys, never listen to a leftist when it comes to foreign policy. As I've said before, you would legitimately have a higher likelihood of getting a good take listening to a liberal, even like an MSNBC liberal. I'm not joking.
What he's talking about when he talks about bad case coming from leftists is that we actually oppose war and we oppose militarism and we oppose the United States involvement in anywhere. He'll be like, United States bad. And it's like, dude, what do you expect from a late capitalist, militarized country that's always teetering on the brink of fascism? Do you actually expect them to go out there and produce anything for the global good? Absolutely not. The United States only knows one thing, and that is its selfish pursuit of profit across the globe. And now maybe we'll throw in some domination just for domination's sake. Vaush, are you kidding me? Are you kidding me that you're telling me right now that the same party that took us from 2 wars to 7, teetering on 8 right now, that the same one that continues to inflate the military budget every single year without fail, the same military, I might add you, which cannot produce a single audit, the same military that has done literal human rights atrocities in more countries than I can count or name for you on this live stream? Absolutely absurd. These lefties don't trust them to go out there and be the global police. Vaush, this is your most dog shit take I've ever heard. I don't know if you will watch this, but fingers crossed you do. And without any further ado, would you like to go ahead and plow into this Vaush video?
Yeah, let's get into this one. So as I said, Vaush has basically totally waged war on the Young Turks. It's pretty funny to see so many other commentators on the left finally just deciding to go to war with TYT. Zach and I have been at war with TYT basically since the very beginning.
Get with the program, son.
Exactly. But now it's mainstream. You know, Zach and I are hipsters. We're always ahead of the curve a little bit, setting the trends. But now everyone else is caught up, and it's now the mainstream position to hate on TYT, right? Now everyone, Vaush included, is joining the dog pile. And he's been making a lot of videos going after them recently, most of which I totally agree with, most of which are kind of echoing a lot of the points that we've made over here on the Vanguard about the way that TYT has kind of been going downhill recently, in the way that Anna has specifically responded in a really unproductive way to some of her critics in a very immature way, honestly. So this new video I was excited to watch, but in reality, I found myself shockingly agreeing with Cenk and Anna. And I felt like it was necessary for us to cover this so I could respond to some of Vaush's talking points here, because I think he's completely off base. And to be completely honest, despite our criticism of TYT, I actually think this video they deserve credit for. I think this is one of their best videos in a while. And I was honestly shocked to hear how much Vaush disagreed with them.
What is this?
HuffPost delves into the many struggles facing Justice Democrats, the progressive group that endorses progressive candidates and gets quite a few people elected, at least in the past. The ladies of the squad are Justice Democrats. Jamal Bowman is another example of a Justice Democrat. But right now it seems that the left-wing coalition is disintegrating, unfortunately, and progressives have different ideas on how to rebuild it. So I'm gonna give you a few excerpts, and Cenk is also quoted in the piece. But before we get to Cenk's quote, first the details on the Justice Democrats. Just over 6 years since its founding, Justice Democrats' opposition is more organized while its mission is more muddled and its coffers depleted. Faced with a shortage of funds, the group laid off 9 of its 20 staff members in mid-July, a move that took many prominent progressives by surprise.
I'm not that surprised by this, because contrary to what a lot of people think, the environment where progressives do best is not when we're being faced with like far right opposition. The environment in which progressives do best is when the problems that we face are.
And I don't even understand what he means there by saying that the environment the progressives do best is not when we're faced by far right opposition, because for my entire life, every single election cycle, we've been faced by far right opposition. Now, you can say that Trump represented a new low for the Republican Party and an even more blatant form of fascism. But to say that George Bush, Mitt Romney, and John McCain did not represent a form of like a far right opposition, that's crazy. The Republicans have been far right my entire life, and every single candidate they've put up has been a far right extremist in many, many ways. So basically, under Vaush's logic, at no point during my lifetime was it a good good conditions for progressives to take power, and nor will it be for the foreseeable future. So that's just an incredibly pessimistic and depressing outlook if you are a progressive, if you're left of the Democratic establishment.
Yeah, 100%. And that's kind of the dark cloud that hangs over every single political analysis that Vaush makes, right? It's like, oh, like you're so crazy for thinking that you should actually make a change in the system that has produced nothing but the constant overwhelming threat of fascism for our entire life, right? First, it was George Bush and what the Bush-Cheney regime represented, all the way on to, I mean, it's absolutely crazy. You had fucking John McCain, who was like, yes, lauded by the Republican Party for being somehow a moderate, but he was absolutely not a moderate. He had a nut job vice president, and he was going to be a warmonger to fuck. I mean, even worse than Barack Obama was, although he would have only made it 4 years. He never would have gotten a second term. Mitt Romney, again, he's a wolf in sheep's clothing for all the times that he tries to like stand up to Donald Trump and like, protect all of the like goodwill of the country and the democracy and all that shit. He also would have been a tremendously like giant piece of shit. Then we still ended up with Donald Trump. Okay, so we fought off fascism for all that time, and then we still got the biggest fascist of them all, a guy who literally tried to subvert the will of the people and overthrow the government. So it doesn't seem like that plan of just staying the course is putting on good results, right? Eventually one of them is going to break through and they're going to have become so right wing and they're going to become so fucking totalitarian because the Overton window has been moved so far to the right by the Democrats, who have become basically the Republican Party, and then the Republican Party has become something else, right? And you're telling me that while I have the Republicans and then I have the fascists, that I shouldn't be proposing any kind of other alternative? Like, it's absolutely ridiculous. But it's that mind like view, or like I guess the world view, excuse me, that leads him astray constantly, I think.
Totally.
Unambiguously the fault of like neoliberal governance and incompetence, because that way it's really easy to point the finger at them. The problem is that like right now the most important thing to do in American politics is to fight the fascists, and that is equally the case if you're a liberal, progressive, socialist, or communist. So exactly, the political climate currently favors liberalism because it's seen as a safe and proven alternative to fascism. Well, so that's public perception. I'm not saying I agree with that. Obviously, I fully support the progressive line, but to a lot of voters, they're going to think of it as another unnecessary risk.
And they seem to be returning their main focus back to electoral politics and away from advocacy on policy. Except it should be noted that the Justice Democrats have not yet announced any endorsements of primary challengers, of candidates in open seats, and that is a stark change from what they did previously. Previously, like the whole point is to primary corporate Democrats in Congress, and they again have yet to endorse any new candidates. And
there's not really a wedge to get them on right now, right? Like, think about it. Before there was Black Lives Matter, because during Black Lives Matter, progressives had the front seat, like it was the progressive Democrats and the progressive activists who were the loudest and most prominent during BLM, because it was like an advocacy movement. And then there's like Medicare for all, but nobody talks about Medicare for all. Dude,
yeah, that's the problem, Vaush. Like that, you're outlining the problem. You're explaining why Justice Democrats is failing and why they can't get any donations and why people are fed up with them, because they're not being loud and aggressive when it comes to the issues that they promised to fight hardest on. When it comes to the issues of police brutality, you barely ever hear the squad members bringing that up in a serious way. You barely ever hear them talking about healthcare anymore. Joe Biden literally promised he ran on a public option. He campaigned on passing a public option, and he hasn't even talked about it. And
we remember how he talked about his social rights initiative, man, in that leaked audio call. I mean, there were all kinds of esteemed folks on there. I think Reverend Barber was on that call, there were a lot of people that were. Anyway, the audio was terrible. He was completely like demeaning. He castigated them, and he made it clear that whatever he did, if he was not going to defund the police, he was not going to reform the police, and that was that.
Yeah. So Vaush is right that there's not seemingly much of a wedge issue for progressives, for the Justice Democrats to really contrast themselves with the establishment. But the only reason why that's the case is because they've let all the wedge issues, they've stopped talking about all the wedge issues. It's not like they disappeared. It's not like Joe Biden adopted their progressive platform and has started championing Medicare for all and has introduced bill to raise the minimum wage or something like that. No, he has not adopted our platform or our policies whatsoever. The only thing that's changed is that the Justice Democrats, the so-called progressives in Congress, have stopped fighting back. They've stopped even pretending to resist. They've stopped even vocalizing their disagreements with the president. That's the reason why there doesn't seem to be a wedge issue. It's not because anything else. It's because of their failure.
For all is so cooked, it got talked about in 2016 and then it faded away. And now the fascists are here and it's such a big deal. And, we're not even going to get.
When Medicare for All got popular, that was in 2015 when Bernie Sanders was running for president. And Vaush says, well, now the fascists are here, so we can't really focus on it anymore. In 2015 and 2016, when Bernie Sanders started his movement for Medicare for All and ran for president for the first time, that's when Donald Trump was simultaneously rearing his head for the first fucking time, really coming to prominence in the Republican Party and winning the primary. He became their nominee while Bernie Sanders was simultaneously, generating the momentum behind the policies that Vaush is now saying we can no longer entertain or push the ball forward on because of the fascism that Donald Trump represents. But he's failing to acknowledge that Trump has always been there. Trump's been there from before Bernie Sanders popularized Medicare for All. Trump has always been a threat.
Yeah, and he says it as if it's no big deal at all. He kind of just brushes it off. He's like, "Oh, Medicare for All is completely cooked, you crazy lefties." And it's just dude, I feel like I am getting the most West Wing neoliberal political analysis out of Vaush while he's still being I agree with all of these policy prescriptions, but you guys are just ridiculous. And then do you know what I started to think about, Gavin? You know what I started to think about? Back in 2008, there was a gentleman who was a blogger, right? And one of the big things that he was blogging about was healthcare in this country. And one of the things that they were talking about was that, while Obama is pushing his healthcare initiative, we should really talk about how all these other countries get healthcare, right? And how it's a nationalized or more of a socialized medicine. It is a guaranteed universal healthcare system, right? And then his other buddy, who was also a blogger, they kind of teamed up together and they got really, really famous. And they started this publication called Vox.com. And it was Ezra Klein and Gabe Matt Iglesias, LOL, whatever the fuck his name is. And then they became fucking Obama stands, right? Then they became actually, once Bernie Sanders is actually talking about giving everybody those exact policy prescriptions that you used to edgelord about, now you're whoa, man, we really just need Hillary Clinton. We really just need Hillary Clinton right now. And that's the kind of energy I get from Vaush. Vaush, my charge to you is, do you feel like you are giving me Vox Media energy, Ezra Klein energy? Because you've just decided that championing Medicare for All is not the edgy banner to wave anymore.
Right. And it's a human right atrocity that we're talking about here. We're talking about tens of thousands of people that die every year due to a lack of health insurance. You don't just stop talking about that. You don't just stop fighting for those people. It's crazy to me. What else would you say that about? What other human right atrocity would you just be that's cooked, time to move on? Would you say that about the apartheid in Palestine? Would you say that about the genocide in Yemen? Would you say that about the Civil Rights Act?
That might be a little bit hyperbolic. There are a fuckload more people being put to death in Yemen than are dying from the lack of healthcare in America. I feel like we might, need to specify that.
I'm not saying that the same scale of atrocity. I'm just saying, what other human right atrocity would you talk about? Because in my opinion, 60,000 people a year dying and tens of thousands more going into medical bankruptcy. I mean, that's a human rights atrocity. That's a fucking genocide, basically. So yeah, I don't think you just stop talking about that. And in the same way that if they had failed to fucking pass the Civil Rights Act, you just stop bringing it up? You decide to move on because there are bigger issues? No, some things you don't stop fighting for. Some things you got to keep the ball rolling, even if it seems impossible. I mean, this goes for a lot of lefty priorities. And when you start giving up on these fights and just giving ground to the fucking establishment, that's when it stops even sounding like progressivism to me. It stops even sounding like leftism, and it starts just sounding like neoliberal incrementalism and, you know, this acceptance of the status quo.
Oh, I mean, it definitely is neoliberalism and acceptance of the status quo. I'm not disputing that, but anyway, we've argued about our different, definitions for that before.
Get a public option. We're all going to go bankrupt from a medical problem. Like, that's it, That's all we get.
I'm curious.
KCJ, I saw that link the first 4 times. Everyone, please remember, I see your links when you first post them. You don't need to repost them. If I ignore them, it's for a reason. Like, I'm not going, like, if you describe a link, here's Kyle doing a soy boy for Orb Mommy over AOC. I don't care.
You think about that, Cenk?
Yeah, look, when we started Just Democrats...
Contrary to what some of you people think, Kyle Kulinski is not and probably never will be an enemy of this channel, okay? I like Kyle. And I like...
He literally already was an enemy of the channel before you talked to him and then realized he was like a reasonable, nice guy. But you used to make hella videos shitting on Kyle, calling him like a fascist and like a fucking... like an enabler of the right wing and all sorts of crazy shit. So he already was a villain on your channel at one point, Vaush, but that's kind of besides the point.
Honestly, one thing I do respect about Vaush is that if you can win him over with your demeanor, he's like, yeah, you know what? I will stop calling you a fascist and a fascist enabler. And that's what we did. We went over there and we were like, look, man, I don't think you could reasonably describe us as fascists. And he was like, you know what? Fair enough. I'm just going to describe you as like fucking, petulant fucking narcissist children. And I was like, you know what? Hey, that's a step in the right direction from fascism. I appreciate that, Vaush. Thank you.
Marianne Williamson, too.
Yes, we started Just Democrats. And by we, I mean both me and the co-founders like Sharkat Chakrabarti and yes, Kyle Kulinski and Zach Exley. But also we, as in you guys, the audience, you gave literally millions of dollars to start this group. And we launched it here on the Young Turks. And we were all very clear. You have to challenge the establishment. That's the whole point of this organization. And in the first cycle, we ran 78 races. Zach's original idea, he's one of the co-founders, was to run 435 or 535 races if we could, right? Now that was too ambitious, but I loved him for it, and it was the right way of thinking about it. And then we only won 4 out of the 78, but you normally get a lot of ha-ha that, oh, your winning record's not that good, your winning percentage, etc. But that was a hell of a 4. AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar, and Ayanna Pressley, and they made a giant difference in the beginning, right? So we were going in the right direction. But then the organization, for some reason, started worrying about their winning percentage. And then they started running less and less people. And they started running them in only super blue districts because they thought that was more winnable. That's fair, it is more winnable in super blue districts.
I'm kind of torn on this because I think there's a good argument to be made for what Cenk is saying, and I think there's an argument to be made against it. On one hand, I do think a gigantic scattershot approach is important because the DNC does basically no work or outreach in red districts that could potentially go blue, but they don't put in the effort because they don't have like the on-the-ground infrastructure or the energy, and like all the consultants are from New York City. So, like imagine a DNC consultant from New York City trying to plan out strategy for getting a candidate to like win an election in some like potentially swing district in Alabama, and they're like grimacing as they go down there and talking to people. It's this contemptuous like coastal elite bullshit really fucks them over when it comes to dealing with areas like that, middle America, that kind of stuff. So I get that argument. At the same time, I did see people giving the Justice Dems a lot of shit for their low winning percentage early on. It is possible that like by doing too much of a scattershot approach, you do kind of dilute the organization, both in terms of focus and funds, and you end up leading people to disrespect the org. I think the problem is that nobody really cares about the Justice Dems anymore. The Justice Dems were exciting for a while, and I still think the Justice Dems are better than your average Democrat, but the name Justice Dems does not elicit this like countercultural...
That's because they didn't fucking do anything once they got there, Vaush. That's the whole idea, the whole concept of Justice Democrats was that they were going to be... Do you think for 1 second, Vaush, that if AOC had 7 AOCs sitting outside of Nancy Pelosi's office doing the Green New Deal protest all the fucking time, that instead of calling her mama bear and wearing a fucking tax the rich outfit and, going on Vogue magazine 800 fucking times and basically getting the Obama treatment, right? Like essentially like they'd already defanged Obama in the media and just made him a darling by like the fucking first year that he was president, like by inauguration day, like he was given the Nobel fucking Peace Prize, like right around that time, all that shit. They made him a media darling and they took out any teeth. They said, no, do you want to hang out with Richard Branson when you get out of here? Do you want to, have the life you always dreamed of? Then shut up and do what we say. And that's exactly what they did to AOC, right? And then when Bernie and also Gavin and I have talked about how it was also like it felt a little bit like career angling for some people, like when like it looked like Bernie Sanders was actually gonna make it and be a big force in American politics, that this was like the next step. And that's why you got like the Bill de Blasio's kind of a guys like just hedging their bets, like trying to be cool, trying to be relevant, trying to hold on, and to AOC's credit, the one big thing that she did do second time around for Bernie was endorse him right after the heart attack. I don't want to take all the like base things away. She did base things back in the day. And if she would have kept doing that shit, then there would have been more energy. And then the Justice Democrats wouldn't have become just Democrats. Okay. And then there would have been then there wouldn't have been the, oh, we all vote alone. Then why do you call yourself a fucking squad? Then why did we try and get a bunch of you in here? This is stupid. You need to be a block. If they'd actually done 1 ounce of effective protest, if they'd made one extraction over the last fucking 5 years, guys, 5 fucking years, then maybe people would have some energy around it. But it all comes back. Vaush is like deeply perplexed, or not even perplexed, just ambivalent about the fact that there's absolutely no progressive energy anymore. And it's like, dog, that is a huge problem. And it's because of the fucking failures. You got everybody massively excited. You showed them all the potential. You talked to them about all this theory and how well the world could operate if we only fucking made it that way, right? Well, guess what? We still fucking want it that way, and the people that we sent to go do that did not do that fucking job for us. So what do we have to do now? We have to do something different. But that's why there's no energy behind Justice Democrats. It's because they fumbled the bag. We fucking did so much to send people there, to get them into office, donating, fucking knocking doors, interviewing countless candidates. Gavin and I, not to toot our own horn, we interviewed countless people. Not that we contributed to fucking anything, but we were trying to be part of a larger ecosphere of like promoting lefty candidates and all that kind of stuff. But yeah, there is no energy for it anymore because nobody trusts these people anymore, and they will not donate their money to somebody they don't trust. So yeah,
I guess like attitude. It makes me wonder if the future of progressive advocacy in the Democrats is like decentralized, where you would have leaders to rally around, but not like a title to go by. Does that make any sense? Bernie Sanders did really, really well. He was a great candidate and he commanded a lot of respect, but it wasn't like the Bernie-crats were a actual group that had like funding and staff, It felt like a flash in the pan, and you can make more flashes in the pan. It's not like you can only, it's not like that might only happen once. Vaush, how did the Tea Party succeed? So the thing is, with the Tea Party, the problem is that politics work differently on the right. The right is more willing to concede to reactionary politics because it doesn't necessarily interrupt their pro-business goals. Fascists love collaboration.
I don't even understand how it's reactionary to fight for progressive priorities. Like, obviously, the Tea Party is different because they were fighting for more reactionary goals, but I just don't get the equivalence because what the squad should be fighting for is not reactionary at all. And yeah, you could say that the Tea Party had it easier because the donors were on their side, but I don't care about it being easy. I care about them doing what's right and what they promised to do. And what they promised to do was not reactionary.
But the Democrats aren't, because progressive Democrats are almost always more anti-corporate than neoliberal Democrats. So the Tea Party made a fuss and then got folded in to the Republican Party, effectively supplanting their goals and moving them rightward. Whereas with the Justice Dems, they kind of have to fight and scrape for every bit they get. The DNC just isn't willing to do this leftward lurch.
Where's the fighting? Where's the scraping?
Exactly. Show me one example from the last 2 or 3 years of the squad seriously, aggressively resisting the establishment and getting anything out of it. You can't. There are no examples of that.
Strategy has to be a little bit different, Yes, the Tea Party also has had a lot of money. There's always going to be more money circling around in right-wing environments because,
But we got to scare some people in purple districts, otherwise we can't get their votes in Congress. Because the point isn't to get AOC elected or any one of these people elected. The point is to pass bills,
right,
to pass policy priorities for progressives. But along the way, both the legislators and the group, unfortunately, lost their way and they took their eyes off the prize. I have more on that in a second.
In fact, okay, so this is a perfect time to mention one of the biggest obstacles for the organization at the moment, which is fundraising. So I'm going to give you the quotes. Alexandra Rojas, who is the Justice Democrats executive director.
Yeah, Annie, I think I agree. if like your primary goal here is to win Congress, right? And you want to win Congress with enough seats that you can potentially sway policy. So maybe in the future you actually can do a kind of force the vote situation, or get cabinet appointments where you have power as progressive Democrats.
Pause it.
And in order to do
This is Vaush giving away his hand. He said in the future when you could do a force the vote thing, he said back in the day that under no circumstances would force the vote ever be a good strategy. So you could just tell that he was trying to position himself as different from the people that supported it. And also it reinforces the fact that he doesn't think that it's ever the right time to fight for a progressive policy. So that was the other reason that he decided to oppose force the vote, was now is not the time. Well, you just told us earlier that it's never going to be the time. So I think you have to at least concede it was the appropriate strategy at the moment. But I'm gonna take that as a W for the Vanguard also.
that, you don't just want to have AOC win in super ultra mega blue environments, right? You want to have like progressives win all over the country, but that's easier said than done, right? You know, I mean, I would love to see like 5 new junior Democrat progressives come in from Louisiana, but that's not like, saying that is one thing. It doesn't mean it's really like, you know, doable.
Director told HuffPost, quote, "We are vulnerable to sudden changes in grassroots giving. The ebbs and flows for us are bigger." Now, remember, Justice Democrats, they take up small dollar donors, grassroots money. And this is my speculation, but you're going to get less funding from grassroots donors if they feel that you are not delivering for them. So I'm going to give you a few examples. When there are headlines about Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez voting present when she should have voted no on an extra $1 billion for Israel, right? That's on top of the funding that we already provide for Israel every single year, billions and billions of dollars. That showed a level of weakness and the willingness to honestly turn her back on the people who have supported her and promoted her and defended her as she's being attacked by corporate Democrats, right?
Yeah, I don't like this attitude. AOC has done
What the
votes
fuck? That was the most base thing Anna said in fucking years, Vaush. In years, Vaush. What are you talking about? Anna gets right back on the horse and starts fucking slaying it again. I'm like, wow, what year is it? I feel like Marty McFly watching this clip. Jesus Christ, I need to get back to the future, because this isn't Anna Kasparian. This is a leftist argument that just came out of her mouth. Good for you, Anna. You found your footing. And then Vaush is like, I hate this line of thinking. Why? Why do you hate this line of thinking? This is so obvious. Like, oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's crazy. I mean, he titled this video, TYT Can't Stop Moving Right. They're out of control. What have they even said that could conceivably be construed as right wing? And we're more than happy to call them out as soon as they start pandering to the right wing or parroting some right wing talking points. In no way are we prone to defend the Young Turks. But the fact of the matter is they're making a very clear left wing argument here, advocating that the Justice Democrats are more aggressively progressive, more aggressively left wing, actually representing that thorn in the side to the Democratic establishment that they ran on being. How is that in any way right wing? They're calling out these congresspeople from the left. They're calling them out for selling out. How is that right wing at all? I don't even get this.
Agreement, but like, holy shit, man, we have to accept that even if we got a squad of ultra communists in Congress, there's so much wheeling and dealing that goes on behind the scenes that they will inevitably one day vote for stuff that just seems like a betrayal of their values or whatever. Like,
okay, wheeling and dealing. What the fuck did AOC get out of the deal? No, I saw the wheeling, but where was the dealing? Because what was the deal? She just
Her deal with they weren't going to fight an answer challenge.
Right, exactly. Yeah, she wanted to hold on to her seat. She, wanted to keep climbing the career ladder and avoid a challenge. That's, fair enough, but that's a deal for you, AOC. What's the deal for us? What's the deal for the progressive movement that you were sent to represent? What the fuck do you have to show for selling out? What the fuck do you have to show for betraying us? Because if you did have something to show for it, then I guess I could, put aside the betrayment and say, well, I get it. You had to play politics. You had to kind of sacrifice something in order to get this win, in order to kind of get Biden or Pelosi on your side and secure this big victory for the left, right? Well, what fucking victory was secured? No victories were secured. You sold out for nothing.
They fought
betrayed
fascism, Gavin.
Right. You betrayed us for nothing. Not just us, Zach and fucking me. I'm talking about the Palestinian people, the activist communities that elected you and defended you. As Anna said, she's like, yeah, you're kind of embarrassing everyone that has been defending you for all these years, referring to themselves, of course, at TYT, who for years gave the squad the benefit of the doubt, have now finally caught up to the fact and are, being honest about the fact that the squad are sellouts for the most part and that they have totally lost the plot. But she's like, yeah, we were defending you. We were defending you when all these people were calling you out and were totally correct from the jump. We were fucking embarrassing ourselves defending you guys. And now even us, we have to fucking admit the truth. And we have to admit that you guys have disappointed us all and completely sold out the movement that elected you in the first place.
So many bills go through Congress, and there's so much stuff that happens that we don't get any insight onto. If they're good like 95% of the time, that's set for me. I don't want to because if you set that standard, it's like, well, you're never if Bernie had won and become president, he also would have done stuff that we wouldn't have agreed with because he is the president. He's subject to interests and information that we will never know or understand. He is literally the most powerful man on earth. But if he does most things right most of the time, that's still a huge win. I don't like this attitude. That being said, it is true that AOC and other Justice Dems have to play a game where they have to appear as though they're challenging the status quo, but at the same time, they can't risk coming off too combative, or else liberal Democrat media will fold them in with the MAGA crowd as the enemy of liberty. I can see the MSNBC lines now. In a time where our country faces great threat and peril from the MAGA crowd and anti-democracy types, AOC and the Justice Dems have opposed a Democrat bill, thus aligning with them.
This is such a stupid talking point. I really hate this attitude. This is why the left will never win. This is why the fascists will always win. The threat of fascism, which is real, by the way, I'm not in any way trying to minimize or downplay that threat, but the threat of fascism is not a reason to stop fighting for or talking about progressive priorities. It's not a reason to give up. In fact, it's actually the exact opposite. It's the exact opposite. In the face of fascism, when fascism rears its head, that's when progressives need to double down. That's when progressives need to double down and present a seriously populist progressive alternative to the fascism. That way, Americans don't end up getting fooled by the fascists into thinking that the fascists are actually going to help them out more than the milquetoast neoliberalists. That's what we saw in 2016. Donald Trump did not win because he was such a great candidate. He won because Hillary Clinton was such a dog shit candidate. 100%. I think pretty much any other Democrat would have beat Donald Trump, but because he was running against the literal personification of coastal elitism and neoliberal policy, he was able to kind of fool people into voting for him, talking about outsourcing, talking about ending the wars, and basically lying to people running on a faux populist agenda. But if there had been a serious progressive like Bernie Sanders who was actually offering an agenda that would help the American people, that actually spoke to the needs of the American people, then Trump would never have won. So progressives need to double down. They need to present a serious alternative and really speak to the American people and aggressively contrast themselves with the corporate Democrats, or else fascism is 100% going to come back. Then Americans are 100% going to be duped into voting for a fascist again, because the Democrats just can't provide a very convincing alternative, unfortunately.
Sad reacts on.
It's really, really, really difficult to manage. I do not envy AOC.
That's one example I have in mind. When they fail to, the latest example, in my opinion, when it comes to AOC, and I don't mean to harp on her, I've seen some failures when it comes to Justice Democrats in Congress across the board, but she just goes on Pod Save America, and without trying to get any concessions from Joe Biden, prematurely endorses him, saying, given the field, yes, I endorse Joe Biden for re-election.
And why would you do that? Look, I think Israel is an ironic example, because they've actually been the toughest on the issue of Israel overall. 9 just Democrats voted against, saying that Israel is not a racist state, and they held the line even though—
I just wonder how much, would her have withholding her endorsement mattered when we know that's where her endorsement was going to go? There's literally no other Democrat contender, there's
yes,
no, that's
is.
the only real.
There is Marianne Williamson, bro. I'm just saying, that's not true. That's just not fucking true. And you don't have to just regurgitate the corporate media's understanding of the dynamic. Yeah, obviously Marianne's a long shot. Yeah, RFK is a long shot. Yeah, Joe Biden's probably going to become the president. That doesn't mean that fucking AOC just has to fall in line. Even if you don't think she should endorse Marianne Williamson, she could at least stay out of the process. She could at least demand something in return for her endorsement, right? Why do we just have to give up so fucking easily?
Yeah, I think what it is honestly, it's like the same thing that leads people to have a lot of all holier than thou politics, where it's actually, bro, what you have to do is just keep everything exactly the same, because that's the way it needs to be, bro. It's hey man, I really wish that I could also be so self-delusioned into thinking that we could change this world. But honestly, dude, the only reality is that we can't, you know? And like in theory, bro, I'm totally with you. But like what you should do is just give up now and never have any political ambition and never do anything, because the best you could do is suffer. We're already dead, bro. We're already dying from climate change. We're already never going to accomplish anything. All you have to do is sit back and do nothing and then pull the lever. And then it's like, that is a real, like, it makes people feel really smart to think that, because they just have it all figured out. You know what I mean? And it's a lot more difficult to be like, okay, that is a route to never getting anything that we want. What we could also do is, you know, take our X-Wing fighter and do a very difficult maneuver, but shoot the exact port of the Death Star, right? It might fail, might ruin everything, but at least you have the chance for success, right? Otherwise, the Death Star kills us all, okay? To use a clunky Star Wars analogy, right? You either can just stay the status quo and never feel like you jeopardized anything, but also concede, as Vaush has done 10 million times in this video, that you will never accomplish a single left-wing ambition. And if that's your prerogative, that's fine, but don't call yourself a leftist. You are a liberal. This is a liberal's argument that Vaush is making right now. And a lot of people fall for it, again, because they like the idea of feeling like, you know, oh, well, then it's all settled, right? Then there's nothing to fight for. Like, all I have to do is oppose this fascism. All I have to do is pull the lever. And actually, I am doing all that I can. And it's like, no, you're not, dude. What you have to do is take a fucking risk. What you have to do is actually challenge the status quo. Like every, and like Vaush will say that this is LARPing, that this is like, you know, making yourself into an egotist. And he'll be like, oh, it's really good for, you know, growing your YouTube channel. And he doesn't mention how good the fucking Ukraine conflict was for growing his fucking channel. But we'll get to that later if we decide to. He'll act like it's some huge grift to be like, hey, actually, we can do something besides just fall in line for the Democratic Party. And all the while, he's telling you that we just need to suck it up. You know, 60,000 people a year. Yeah, they're cooked. Yeah. You know what I'm saying?
Exactly. And again, it's like, you know, some people would be like, why are you so upset about the Justice Democrats and AOC doing what every other Democrat in Congress also did? You know, endorse Joe Biden, failed to push back. The reason why people get upset about this is because AOC and the rest of the Justice Democrats, they promised to be different, right? If they just ran as corporate Democrats, as mainstream establishment Democrats, no one would be expecting them to do anything other than what they're doing, right? So, Tyler, when you say things like this, I do agree that she gave in way too easily, but to get irrationally angry about it is just stupid. Yeah, some people take it too far and they spend their entire YouTube career just shitting on the squad members and progressives. And yeah, you know, can you cross a line and go too far down that road? For sure. That does happen. We've seen that before. But if you want to know why people get mad at the squad and why they're pissed off about the fact that they're not doing the things we want them to do, it's because we were lied to, Tyler. And as Cenk just said on the show, they had to raise millions of dollars, not from corporations, but from their own audience, to start Justice Democrats and to elect these Congress people, not to fucking endorse Joe Biden, not to go along to get along and to fold immediately as soon as they get into fucking Washington, D.C., but no, to actually fight back, to actually aggressively be that left flank that we need them to. So that's why people get mad about it, Tyler. It's because they fucking lied to us. I'd almost rather they just ran as corporate Democrats, because then I wouldn't be disappointed. Then they wouldn't have betrayed me. I don't expect fucking Sharice Davids to endorse Marianne Williamson or to challenge Joe Biden herself. Of course not. I knew she was going to do that because she ran as a corporate Democrat. She ran as an establishment-friendly Democrat. AOC did not run as an establishment Democrat. She ran saying, I'll happily be a one-term congresswoman if it means doing the right thing. She ran saying, it's ridiculous that I'm even considered part of the same party as Joe Biden. So yeah, I am angry about the fact that the AOC that I supported and that got elected would be challenging Joe Biden for the establishment. She would be stepping up and doing what Marianne Williamson is trying to do, not endorsing the motherfucker on Pod Save America of all places, not even, you know, having the fucking balls to go on independent media in order to justify her decision to endorse.
Well, then she'd have to go on independent media at all. Closest thing she's come is a fucking interview with David Sorow.
Exactly. Yeah. But at least then she would be, you know, allowing the independent left-wing grassroots to try to hold her accountable. And, you know, she'd be explaining and justifying her decision to a left-wing host, an independent host. Instead, she goes on the fucking Obama propaganda podcast in order to talk about what a great job Joe Biden has done. Go fuck yourself. That's why people are mad. But anyway, we can keep watching this.
Yeah, and also I just wanted to add: A, you can never go too far, as Ferris Bueller said, and B, if our political priorities are going to get busted, it is not going to be like a guy like Joe Biden.
Yeah.
Option. It seems like at that point, any withheld endorsement would have been a transparent virtue signal. Like, oh, there's only one real person I can endorse, but like, let me think about it. I actually think that Biden should pass Medicare for all first. I don't know how well that would play in an environment.
How about fire the Senate parliamentarian, Vaush? How about do one fucking thing? He's gonna go on and he's gonna, oh, people are mad that he didn't fucking just use the Senate to just fucking snap his fingers and pass Medicare for all. No, what we were mad was is that he had a majority in the Senate and the House of Representatives, and he still, the Senate parliament. But Vaush, you are so smart. You know that he could have fired the Senate parliamentarian, and you know that he could have gotten the $15 minimum wage deal done, but he chose not to. He could have forced Congress to make up their minds or risk getting fucking primaried out the asshole in 2022 with his blessing, or codify Roe v. Wade after we all knew what the fuck was coming down the pipeline after Donald Trump stacked the fucking courts. Okay, he could have done those two things with the fucking majority that we gave him and the people of fucking Georgia gave him, but he didn't do any of that shit. He could have tethered the infrastructure bill to Build Back Better and made the bipartisan and the Democratic priority bill in Congress, HR, whatever the fuck it was, for infrastructure. And then he could have given a $6 trillion infrastructure package instead of a paltry like half a, or what was it? Like half a billion, 500, it was something stupid. I think it was 500 billion over a period of time. I can't remember actually the numbers. So it's absolutely ridiculous. It was extremely paltry. For me, Jayapal, you guys remember, she separated the bills and was like, oh, we're going to vote on that one next. Obviously just playing the role of the fucking village idiot. Yep. Okay. To pass this down our throat, get the fucking bipartisan one. So Joe Biden could be like, yeah, see, we passed an infrastructure bill. That's the biggest one in years. Yeah, well, we haven't passed any fucking infrastructure bills in years. So no shit, this one's the biggest, even though it's not worth fuck all. And oh, by the way, I'm also going to do the Willow Project and not tell anybody about that and keep destroying and eroding our environment while I pretend that somehow I'm the president that's doing most to avert the climate catastrophe. This shit is all blowing my fucking mind. Vaush, we should be singing Kumbaya, talking about how we want to get this guy out of office faster than fuck. Okay, I don't understand how somebody with your fucking ability to analyze the world and, seemingly be an intelligent guy and then just be like, no, I'm okay with us all being fucked. Like, that's crazy, dude. No, you don't have to be okay with that. You can say, no, Vaush, I don't want to be fucked.
Yeah, again, and if you're self-worried about the fascists, as we all are and should be, by the way, then why are you not more angry at the Democrats for being so fucking terrible, so shitty and incompetent, for failing to improve people's lives to the extent that they're willing to entertain re-electing the fascists? If the Democrats were doing a good job, then people wouldn't even be like concerned. They wouldn't even be entertaining the idea of re-electing Donald Trump, because they'd be like, we're good. This guy's doing great. My life is better. He's actually fighting for me. Instead, because of the fact that the Democrats are so incompetent, once again, they're opening that door. They're opening that door for Donald Trump to walk right through once again, just like they did in 2016. So yeah, fucking maddening.
These are going to pan out in terms of Democrat support. Maybe not.
They got a lot of blowback from Washington, and all of this is nuance. And by the way, Alex Rojas was definitely part of the initial leadership team and was a huge part of the successes that happened. And that's why she got the executive director position. Corbin Trent was an incredible part of the organization originally, et cetera. And they've done great work. Just Democrats have done great work overall. There's 11 Just Democrats in Congress when nobody thought that that was possible. Now, having said that, look, on economic issues.
Why not endorse Marianne? Because Marianne isn't even trying to get ballot access. Like, Marianne is doing some advocacy work, but like, this isn't a real contender for the presidency. I think endorsing Marianne would have been irresponsible, not only because you don't want to endorse somebody who has no chance of winning at all, because that makes you look like a bad decision maker, but it also would have been kind of an insult to Joe Biden to go like, oh, Joe Biden will obviously win the primary because there is no
how sad.
Primary, but like, yeah, I'll toss my endorsement over to somebody with no chance because I'm that disgusted with Joe. And while that may seem like it's playing hardball politics, it also alienates AOC from people who are really invested in Joe Biden winning. No, it is. It's like an unwinnable game, funny rhetorician. Like, but I see both sides of this because I'm a big brain enlightened centrist, like I always have been. Tim Cool.
Honestly,
Kinda
that's
cool.
the
I'm
only.
centrist.
That's the only. I think that Vaush unironically just described his politics right there. I really do think that Vaush would be better, self-described as an enlightened centrist, because he would, to his credit, do a far better job of, I think, actually living up to, like, it's, guys like Sitch and Adam will call themselves centrists, but like if you 99% of their content is just like, oh, look at this fucking anti-trans thing that I want to tell everybody about, and it's just like it always, or here's this like angry black woman, like take your pick, like it's a right wing fucking deal. But whereas Vaush, I think that he actually does kind of fall down the line of like what a regular global centrist would kind of understand politics to be.
I don't even get Vaush sometimes because he talks about the threat of fascism, and he's obviously like super worried about the right wing's attack on trans people and LGBT people, as are we, of course. Like, obviously, that's something we spend a lot of time talking about, and we defend the LGBT community from these attacks relentlessly. But to have all of that energy and to go that hard for the LGBT community, but then to seemingly have none of that energy for the uninsured, for the tens of thousands of people that die every year because of a lack of health insurance. Like, again, I'm not saying you should care more about one than the other, but shouldn't you have at least an equal amount of energy for both? Because, like, I mean, as bad as what's happening on the front of LGBT people, like as bad as the right wing assault on that is, it's not like you can point to literally like 60,000 people a year that are dying as a direct result of a policy that should and could be changed. I think if there was such a policy that was resulting in the death of like 60,000 trans people a year that you could unequivocally trace back to this one policy, I think Vaush would agree that we need to fight to change that policy. I think he would agree that we need to, like have a lot of momentum and build a movement around changing that policy. But it just seems like he has so much more energy for one than the other. And I don't understand that, because to me, as a leftist, they're both equally worth fighting for. Attacks on human rights in general are all worth fighting back against, all worth resisting, and none of them deserve to just be tabled while we wait for the perfect political conditions to arise in which to execute our plan. I just don't get that.
There we go.
They just didn't fight. And so I don't think it's speculation at all. I think it's stone cold fact to say that you're getting less grassroots funding because you didn't deliver. And that breaks my heart, because we started Just Democrats together. And I want to come out here and tell you we did deliver, and we did awesome, and we did exactly what we were supposed to do. It's not we anymore. I'm not part of the group anymore. But you remember when I left the group, I backed them 100% anyway.
Sorry. Well, I have a pledge that I would like to make to all of you. So long as I am in control of this channel, I will never, ever wear a hat. What's with the hat? I'm Tim Cool.
Anyway, right? Eyes on the prize. How many times you guys hear me say eyes on the prize? But when we had the prize and something like $15 minimum wage, I know for a fact that they chose not to fight. And they said, oh, Bernie Sanders doesn't want to fight. The legislators in the House don't want to fight. Well, who cares? Push them to fight. That's the whole point of Justice Democrats.
The Justice Dems have terrible foreign policy. Yeah, I remember this. AOC and Marjorie Taylor Greene joined forces to back doomed Gate Syria troop bill. Man, guys, never listen to a leftist when it comes to foreign policy. As I've said before, you would legitimately have a higher likelihood of getting a good take listening to a liberal, even like an MSNBC liberal. I'm not joking.
What he's talking about when he talks about bad case coming from leftists is that we actually oppose war, and we oppose militarism, and we oppose the United States involvement fucking anywhere. He'll be like, United States bad. And it's like, dude, what do you expect from a late capitalist fucking militarized country that's always teetering on the brink of fascism? Do you actually expect them to go out there and fucking create, like, produce anything for the global good? Absolutely not. The United States only knows one thing, and that is its selfish pursuit of profit across the globe. And now maybe we'll throw in some domination just for domination's sake. Vaush, are you fucking kidding me? Are you fucking kidding me that you're telling me right now that the same party that took us from 2 wars to fucking 7, teetering on 8 right now, that the same one that continues to inflate the military budget every single year without fail, the same military, I might add you, which cannot produce a single fucking audit, the same military that has done fucking literal human rights atrocities in more countries than I can count or name for you on this live stream? Absolutely absurd. These lefties don't trust them to go out there and be the global police. Vaush, this is your most dog shit take I've ever heard. I don't know if you will watch this, but fingers crossed you do.
Yeah, I hope he watches this too, man. I hope he watches this too. I know
We're always down to stream with Vaush too, by the way. Like if he ever wants to just pop on and I've talked to Vaush enough. I'm pretty comfy with the guy now. I like him enough as like outside of like, I know that he would say the same thing. If I divorce the dog shit opinions that I don't agree with, he's like a perfectly pleasant guy to be around. As it stands, our jobs are both to talk about each other's dog shit political opinions. So there you go. You know what I mean? But it's not like a personal animosity towards the guy. I'm happy to have him on if he wants to fucking talk.
Oh yeah, we'd be more than happy to have Vaush on again. I know we literally just debated him, but holy shit. Yeah, I would be more than happy to hash this one out.
That's how bad leftists are when it comes to foreign policy. Jesus.
If you had told me you're going to get 11 Justice Democrats in Congress, I would be like, yes. If you told me they're not even going to fight for $15 minimum wage, I would be like, that can't be right. That can't be right. That their paid family leave is going to die on the table, and no one's even going to push back. I couldn't believe it. They're not even going to fight for voting rights, and that they were going to go with a strategy. And this one is on Pramila Jayapal, and I asked her to be a Justice Democrat personally, and now I completely regret that. Her strategy was trust Biden. How'd that work out for us? It worked out terribly. We didn't get any of our policies. The only thing we got was some action against climate change in the Inflation Reduction Act. But then Biden's like, hold on. It seems like I'm helping you a little bit.
Yeah, they did try to fight for the $15 an hour minimum wage. They didn't like give it up. I guess like, do you guys really want progressives in Congress to be like nonstop 24/7 advocates for something, no matter the context or?
Yep, that would actually be great. I would love that if they nonstop advocated for my human rights. That thing they were sent to do. Yeah, that would be cool. That would be awesome, actually. And how the fuck did they fight for $15? How? How can you say that? Do you remember, Zach? What is he referencing?
I mean, I think that he said that they supported it, excuse me. I think that they said that they supported it, and I think that they said that they thought it was bad that the Senate parliamentarian, didn't allow it to happen. But I don't remember them ever calling as a unified group for him to fire the Senate parliamentarian. Did that happen? Chat, did that happen? And we fucking iced it from our memories because we are tankies? I don't know.
Whether or not they have enough votes, doesn't that make them come across as really like politically ineffective and annoying? Like if they try.
How does like complaining about, or even not complaining, but calling out bad policy, how does that make you seem whiny? How is that whiny? Like when Trump was president and AOC went down to the border and did that photo shoot, right, where she was screaming and crying and shaking the fence as she looked on in horror at the concentration camps or whatever. Was there actually like a chance of, that her doing that was going to change the federal border policy? No, of course not. But it was still important, even as cringy as it is in retrospect, it was still important to have someone like that bringing attention to the issue, exposing and calling out this human rights atrocity that was happening at our border, paid with our tax money, right? Like that was important. And it's just crazy to not expect the same energy from her now that a Democrat is in office, because that Democrat is doing the same things. There still is a human rights crisis going on at the border. All of these things are still the same that were the case under Donald Trump, but now there is no energy for protest. Now there is no aggressive calling out. And I don't think it should I don't think it's too big of an ask to ask for these Congress people, these so-called progressives, to just even pretend to care, to even pretend to fight for the things that they previously were fighting for. That's just asking for basic consistency.
Tried to get the $15 an hour minimum wage passed, and then it didn't work. Do they, like the next day, they just show up and keep screaming about it? I understand that's what the Republicans do, but I don't know if that would work with them. Is that what we want? Is it just like ruthless, unyielding noise machines that don't have any kind of like bone for political strategy and will just do the thing like wind up automatons? Maybe, you know what? I don't know. Maybe that would be better. Really, maybe it would be. I genuinely don't know. That doesn't feel right to me, but maybe like politics.
I think it genuinely would be better. And here's why. The squad has proven to be completely useless when it comes to actually passing legislation. Like they're ineffective entirely when it comes to actually getting anything done. Now, you could say that's because there's not enough of them, like they don't have the numbers necessary to be effective legislators, whatever. You can make all the excuses you want. The point is they're not getting anything accomplished legislatively. So what utility does that leave them? The only utility that they have left, in my opinion, is to be loud and aggressive advocates for progressive priorities, to be a loud, aggressive left flank calling out Joe Biden for his failures, contrasting their progressive agenda with his neoliberal agenda. Like, that is basically the only use they have. They have a ability to kind of be activists in a space that, you know, takes them seriously, in a space that allows them access to the mainstream media. It gives them more credence as activists to be in the halls of Congress because Congress people are taken more seriously. But again, if they're not going to be effective legislators, and they're not going to be able to actually get anything done or make any deals with the establishment Democrats, then yeah, that's basically the only point they have, right? Is to raise a fucking ruckus. Again, something they campaigned on doing, starting a ruckus. Do that if you're not going to actually get anything done. At least it would appear that you're fighting for us.
Yep. Catch the blast of a hype verse, your Glock verse, and they'll even a hearse. You did worst.
Politics is that stupid.
Psych. Instead, what I'm going to do is totally neutralize that by allowing drilling everywhere, including the Willow Project in Alaska. I'm going to give Joe Manchin a pipeline, even though he destroyed 85% of my agenda. I'm going to gratuitously have more and more drilling. So that turns into a zero, and you didn't get anything else. And then you wonder why your funding dried up. Like, they have these total excuses. And I got to say, I talked to Danny Morales, who did that piece, and I just thought at the end that the piece seemed to emphasize, oh, well, golly gee, the grassroots funding is drying up for everyone. It's not their fault. Well, why do you think grassroots is drying up? Because there's no hope left. Because we can't even get the bare minimum passed. We can't even get them to fight for the bare minimum. Don't pretend that $15 minimum wage was not the bare minimum. That voting rights was not the bare minimum. No progressive in their right mind can pretend that. And don't pretend you fought for it. You're on the record. You did nothing to fight back.
This part right here is just stupid. This is empty posturing. Different people in the Justice Dems, the Democrats, have at varying points fought for these.
The most base thing Cenk has said in years.
I know. Cenk finally gets on a roll. This is why the left can't have nice things. You know, whenever Cenk does a good one, you know, you have to at least give the guy his credit, right? This is actually 100% smart of him.
These things to varying extents. This is just like preachy, screamy, you know, how dare you bullshit.
How is like getting mad at politicians for failing to do the things they promised to do? How is that just preachy, whiny virtue signaling? Like, isn't that just the bare minimum engagement in a democracy? Like, hey, I fundraised for and voted for this politician hoping they would do this thing they were saying they would do. They got into office, betrayed me, sold out, and completely failed to do the things they promised. Now I'm a little bit mad and I'm going to call them out because my job is literally to comment on politics. Like, how is that preaching? How is that whining? How is that virtue signaling? That's just like an honest analysis of what has happened. Yeah, these people, we hope they were going to do this thing and then they didn't. So now we're disappointed. That's just political comment. That's just analysis. What the fuck?
I don't know.
I just feel that just based on what we can see publicly, there's a lack of strategy and a lack of, it seems like they don't really talk to one another or plan on what their plan of attack is, right? And in fact, there was an aide who spoke to
it's explicitly true. They say we all vote alone
about this, and this is what they said. So this is a progressive senior House aide. We have huge champions like Bernie Sanders, AOC, Ilhan Omar, who are able to be successful political fundraisers, but movement-wise, we're not in a great place right now. And one House aide conceded that Justice Democrats aligned incumbents lacked cohesiveness and did not have regular group meetings with Justice Democrats. Other than some Israel bills, we never talked about legislation. There's a perspective that people with Justice Democrats win their race and come to Congress and do their own thing.
That's not a.
Oh, if that's the case, if that's an accurate reflection of their like internal strategy, that's really dumb.
Perception. That's a stone cold fact.
Yeah.
That is absolute reality.
Oh my God.
You guys have
oh
heard
my
me
God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God, Vaush. Oh my God. You do not do your homework all on purpose. We all vote alone. I'm going to pull up this article. He's like, oh, if that's the case, then that is bad strategy. Let me pull up this article. I'm typing with one hand because I'm holding my microphone because the stand broke. I need to find it. Fuck, I can't find it right now. There's literally a clip, like I think it was Cori Bush. I think it was Cori, or it was Ayanna Pressley. It was a member of the squad.
Cori Bush said, as my sister Ayanna Pressley likes to say, we all vote alone. So at the end of the day, like, you have your own district to represent. You got to, vote based on your own constituency or something like that. But yeah, it was Cori Bush reiterating what Ayanna Pressley had said. And this was a story from like 2021. I remember we covered it on the Vanguard at the time.
To before I don't reveal private conversations, but I tell you generally
So what do you think the best time to fight against corporate Dems is? I don't like that question because a lot of people don't seem to understand the like materialist side of political shifts. You know what I mean? The time to fight against corporate Dems is all the time when you can and not when you can't. You know, it is a fact right now that like the current liberal or the current political climate favors liberalism because it's seen as a safe alternative to fascism. If you want to press back against like corporate Democrat behavior, there are times to do. I've talked about it plenty, but I don't. Your first goal in politics is not, well, when do we get to fight the corporate Dems? Your first goal in politics is wake up, smell the roses, and think, what is the most important thing to do right now? And the answer to that is fight fascism. Why do I see so many leftists online who ask, when's the time to challenge the corporate Dems? And not, when's the time to invalidate fascism?
The reason why people are asking that question is because the corporate Dems are completely and utterly failing to fight fascism. They're doing such a shit job fighting fascism that, yeah, it's leading some people like us and seemingly Cenk finally to be like, hey, this isn't fucking working. Because of the fact that the Democrats suck so much, fascists are going to keep winning 50% of the time. The pendulum's going to keep swinging back and forth. So maybe we should make this party better. Maybe we should actually fight for policies that people want us to fight for. And then maybe less Americans would be duped into voting for obvious phony fascists. Is that not like the obvious concern? Like when people are upset about the corporate Democrats or they're mad about Joe Biden, it's not just because we're like, I hate Democrats. Me, fuck the Democrats. No, it's because the Democrats suck so bad that they keep ceding ground to the right, that they keep their failures keep resulting in the re-election of the right wing and allowing the right wing to seize on and exploit their failures, to point out their failures over and over again in order to convince Americans to vote for them instead. This is obviously the issue we have with the Democratic Party. If the Democrats were great at fending off fascists and great at fighting for priorities and policies that we all wanted, then I think everyone would agree with you, Vaush. But the problem is that the Democrats suck at fighting fascists, and that's why we have to step in to try to make them better by being that aggressive, progressive left flank. It's not that hard to understand.
At a political level. I never see that question get asked, which is weird to me because that is by far the most important priority. It's leagues more important than any individual policy issue because the consequence of failing on that particular front are magnitudes greater than the harm done by continuing the status quo. But people don't wake up and say, well, okay, well, how can I most fight against the agenda of the Republican Party? Because leftists don't care about that because that makes them feel like they're liberals. Instead, it's, well, how do we oppose the corporate Dems? You know? Well, here's step one. Make the average Democrat voter not so insanely terrified of fascism that they're willing to accept risky alternatives or what they perceive to be risky alternatives to liberalism. If you
How did that work out for Hillary, Vaush? How did it work out for Hillary? How did it work out for Hillary? How did it work out for Hillary, Vaush? Hey, Vaush, how did that work out for Hillary? Hey, do you remember Hillary Clinton? Hey, Vaush, how did that work out for her? She was the literal queen liberal, and she was going up against the textbook definition of fascism. How did it work out for her, Vaush? This wasn't that long ago, Vaush. I know your memory's not that bad.
Movement, then what you need is stability. And in order to get that, you have to push back against the fascism. That, I think, is the most important thing to focus on.
I was shocked to find out there's no strategy, no planning, no leadership on anything. And it's not just Justice Democrats. That's also other so-called progressives in Congress. Yes, that includes Bernie Sanders, Elizabeth Warren. Nobody ever talks to anybody. They don't coordinate. How the hell are you going to pass something if you don't go and talk to people and you don't have come up with a plan, a strategy? Look, and then if somebody proposes a strategy from the outside, everybody's too good now. Oh, I am a congressperson. Oh, I am a senator. Who cares? What have you done? What have you done?
Now, of course, we do have to, bring up the fact that when people were advocating for the squad members to force the vote, which was kind of an outsider strategy, and people trying to put pressure on progressives and say like, hey, this would be a perfect opportunity for you to use a little bit of leverage and actually cause that ruckus that you promised to cause. And at the time, Cenk was totally poo-pooing that idea. He was defending the squad members and their refusal to engage with that strategy at all. So to be honest, yeah, it is important to bring up Cenk's blatant hypocrisy in that regard. But that being said, I'm glad that he finally came around, right? I do think that we have to take yes for an answer, and I'm not interested in just refusing to acknowledge the validity of his point just because he was at one point a little bit hypocritical. I think he's 100% correct here, despite the fact that he was on a different page a couple of years ago.
Oh yeah, I thought we could still criticize Vaush when Vaush is wrong about this, and then turn around and criticize TYT when they're wrong about, trans rights or something that Vaush would, be correct about and they would be wrong about.
Totally.
So do
I don't know what he's referring to here. I have never seen AOC go, "Oh, I'm a congresswoman." I don't know it. I might be right about this. A lot of new progressives like Maxwell Frost are supporting Israel. I did see the Maxwell Frost vote on Israel, man. Gen Z progressive says he's pro-Israel and pro-Palestinian. What the? This was old. This is from 2022.
even if I didn't agree exactly with the plan, now, even if I thought, well, I would do it in a different way. Who cares? At least she's leading. At least she's bringing together a coalition. She's fighting back against the establishment. Did it happen? It's a verifiable fact that it didn't happen. And so it breaks my heart to tell you that, but that's the situation we're in. I hope that some of this gets through and they begin to realize that they've let the grassroots down. You can't say,
I also regret to inform you, you can't, quote, destroy the establishment from within when there are like 10 Justice Democrats and hundreds of Democrat congressmen.
oh, I let you down, I didn't get you anything you wanted, but give me money. But give me money anyway. That is not a compelling argument. But my guess is they won't listen to anybody. They have Washingtonitis. All of them do. All the reporters do. All the groups do. The legislators do. What is that? They think that Joe Biden actually got a lot done. They're so happy and proud of themselves. They're like, what do you mean? We got a little bit of climate change in there. Yeah, and people are still complaining. Look, guys, in Washington,
He's coming across kind of hysterical here. I feel like there's a good point underlying this, but he's like freaking out. You cannot make all of your policy goals happen when you're like a dozen Congress people and you have a whole Senate and then there's all of the rest of Congress. Like, yeah, he's too wound up.
Oh my God, that's such a straw man. No one's saying, why haven't the squad members passed universal healthcare? Why haven't they single-handedly accomplished all of our priorities as a progressive movement? Obviously, no one's saying there. What Cenk is saying, and the frustration that he's giving voice to, is that they're not even fighting. They're not even pretending to care anymore. Obviously, no one expects AOC to single-handedly get us universal healthcare, but it'd be nice if she at least called out Joe Biden for not talking about the public option like he campaigned on. It'd be nice if she at least called out Joe Biden on refusing to do the things that he could do with the stroke of a pen, like reclassify cannabis and legalize it effectively and free nonviolent drug offenders. Like, these are things that he could do easily that he's not doing. And we're mad because the squad's not fighting back. We're mad because they're not even calling him out. We're not mad because they're not single-handedly bringing on the revolution and giving us everything that we ever wanted. Obviously not. And that's a ridiculous straw man.
Yeah, and also the other thing, before I ran to the bathroom, he was making the point that, there are only 10 squad members and there are hundreds of other people in Congress. Vaush, I want to explain to you that when votes are cast, it is not with hundreds of votes in between. Typically, it'll come down to maybe a dozen votes, maybe 20 votes, right? Depending on the issue. And if you can take away those last 12 votes when they have or in this case, in the Senate, it's like a literal 1 or 2 vote margin, right? If you band together in the House, it's usually, 15, whatever, right? A much more reasonable number. And the whole idea was they would vote as a block. And in order to get that block, which you desire the votes of, then you would make concessions to that block. And that's how politics are supposed to work in a representative democracy governance. But alas.
Yeah, it's crazy how Vaush is like intentionally refusing to grapple with the points that are being made and with the criticisms of the squad members and the progressive movement in general. It's honestly really frustrating. Guess we can watch a little bit more of this.
Yeah.
Right now. All right. Like, oh man, we got a dozen progressive Congress people and they didn't get everything we wanted done.
God.
Oh, that's why you're not getting funded. That's not how it works. Like, Jesus Christ. Imagine if Republican donors, like corporate donors, stopped funding because they have like a couple MAGA guys in Congress and they didn't single-handedly like subvert the election in 2020. It's ridiculous.
They wouldn't have to because they would have already gotten the massive tax cut that Donald Trump did, right? And that would have been good enough for them. They're getting something, okay? They already got something. We've gotten nothing but a fucking finger wag and and spit in the face, right? And then what are we supposed to do? Turn around and let it go again? Or be like, yes, what are you talking about? Of course you got to vote for Joe Biden again. What? No.
Against the system shit. This is like phony populism. Populism without an understanding of how populism functions. Where are these chips on their shoulders they have coming from? Well, this like fake populist outrage is necessary because they're shifting away from the left. So they're trying to pull over people whose main political bent is being, quote, anti-establishment rather than people being like principally left-leaning. Though
TYT's brand has always been like, we're the aggressive anti-establishment left flank. Like that's not like some new pivot. This is actually, if anything, kind of a glorious return to form for TYT. Seeing this energy on display, seeing them loudly and aggressively call out the progressive politicians that sold us out. That's like what made TYT popular in the first place. And by the way, calling out politicians is not some faux populist charade. That's like, again, just part of participating in democracy. When you cast a vote for someone or support someone that then fails to do the things they promised to do and fails to fight for the things they promised to fight for, and then you call them out and, you know, maybe stop supporting them as a result of their failures and as a result of their lies, that's not faux populism. That's not virtue signaling. That's just basic participation in democracy, demanding that what you asked for gets accomplished in order for you to keep voting for that politician. And in the case of AOC and the squad, no, we're not asking that they literally pass Medicare for all. We're asking that they fight back. We're asking that they resist. We're asking that they call out the Democratic establishment for their failures, and they've refused to do any of that. And that's why people are mad. And again, I shouldn't have to explain that. That's pretty obvious. I mean, it's the same reason why so many people called out Obama after Obama campaigned on all of these great progressive priorities. He talked about ending the wars. And then, you know, I remember like my mom was super excited when Obama got elected because, you know, he said he was going to like take the troops out of Iraq and Afghanistan and stuff. And then I remember a couple of years into Obama's presidency, my mom was like kind of upset. And I was like, you know, what's wrong? And she was like, well, Obama just increased the troops in Afghanistan.
Yeah, he did a surge.
Iraq. A surge, right. And she was like, this is something he campaigned.
Also, shout out to the fact that Gavin and I never paid attention to politics before 2016.
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I was like, wait, seriously? He didn't do the thing he promised to do. He said he was going to take the troops out. Now he's adding more troops. That's crazy. Does that make people who were mad at Obama faux populist virtue signalers who were just whining when they were upset about the fact that he did the opposite of what he said he was going to do? No, that's like just basic democracy. Yeah, I voted for this guy because he said he was going to do this thing and then he did the opposite. Now I'm upset. That's the same reason people are upset at the squad members. They said they were going to fight for us. They said they were going to seriously resist and call out the Democratic establishment. Now they're doing the opposite. Now they're defending the establishment. They're telling people to vote for Joe Biden and giving him an A+ grade for no reason whatsoever. That's why people are mad. And again, it's pretty obvious.
Yeah, 100%. Obama did all kinds of betrayal to his principles of whatever values he espoused, especially on the 2008 campaign trail. That guy would say fucking anything to become president. That's how he did become president. But yeah, I mean, he was gonna put Wall Street on trial too, Gavin. You know what I mean? Like fucking all kinds of shit, right? He was gonna save the American dream and you know, keep Americans in their homes and all kinds of shit that he said he was gonna do on the campaign trail. And then a fucking million people lost their fucking houses. So yeah.